Hello there. Today I'm going to go over the two-state society agenda and the establishment of a self-sovereign based, self-sustainable society. So the new two-state society model starts with the formation of the corporate family model. Back in the day, before things went towards a disastrous turn towards violence, initially, both the Italian and the Irish mafia were families in a disadvantaged society that were simply standing by each other to try and make ends meet. Now, ignore what came later. This idea of a family, this idea of a brotherhood, this idea of a sisterhood is fundamental when it comes to history and when it comes to basically any sort of community having each other's backs. So you take the family model and the family unit and how it's defined. Generation after generation, this has changed greatly from what it used to be. But it all starts with the conception of the notion of the family model. Now, we have this old paradigm, and it's kind of becoming a problem, if you ask me. It has the hallmarks of aggressive competition not necessarily to see which is the right course of action we should follow, but competition that is based purely on put the other guy under and take over their share, and to be damned with who has the better product or who's doing things more efficiently or whatnot else. And it leads it perfectly into our next point. It is disastrously inefficient. Why do we have a bunch of companies competing to make the exact same thing when if we were to pool resources together, we'd use less resources to create something better? Which leads us perfectly to the next point. It's wasteful, and we're pissing through resources quicker than you might think. Nothing about our current society is sustainable. It is unsustainable through and through. We cannot keep wasting resources in this fashion. And so we are literally destroying ourselves needlessly in utilizing these resources, planned obsolescence. These things need to go. We need to enter into the new paradigm where cooperation, community, efficiency, trust, self-sovereignty, and initiative. We need to cooperate with each other where needed in order to create a better tomorrow. The why? Because cooperating with one another, collaboration, sort of enterprise, actually is more efficient and it saves us resources. Because why would you hire two people to do the same thing completely independent of each other that is using twice the manpower necessary to accomplish the same task? Now, in the sense of the family unit, community would be a sense of an extended family, but uh, we would basically need to bring back the like for instance in ages past, valuing the advice of the elderly because of their wisdom, having experienced life a little bit longer than we might have, would have been seen as a great boon. Nowadays, people stash their elders in homes and want nothing to do with them because it's inconvenient to take care of them. But the old days was something we should bring back is that the elderly were our gospels of wisdom because they've actually lived a long life experience, and it used to be kind of an accomplishment to make it to 80 years of age. Not as much as it used to be. But also the new paradigm will be built on trust. Trust between self-sovereign individuals. Individuals that are each their own sovereign entity, with their own sovereign identity. And cooperation, not so much competition, but working together as an individual unit. And initiative, because if you don't take the initiative, as Gandhi once said, be the change you want to see. It all starts with you, and you must take the initiative rather, to do the things you see need to be done. If you see a piece of trash on the floor, pick the fucker up, because the trash on the floor, well, why should it not be you? Do you really need a reason to make the world a better place? If you do, I would say congratulations on the ego. It looks fabulous. It makes you seem utterly ridiculous. So I'm going to get into the model of restructuring the business side of things with the corporate co-op. Ideally, it should be a family-oriented community made for self-sustainability. Now, how to do this? What we would need to do is form companies with the mind that the company is a machine that takes up four-dimensional event space, and that machine's purpose is to cause some form of change upon this planet for any purpose we could think of. Now, to create such a thing, we would need to, first of all, look at the company should stay in business and be self-sufficient, meaning that we need to be able to pull our own weight. Corporate welfare is the same evil as socialism. It has the same disastrous consequences as communism. Corporate welfare is not capitalism. A company that needs to survive by being parasitic off of the state does not deserve to be in business. A company should be in business by solving problems. And to have a family-oriented, self-sustainable company, well, you have to then have the company pick up the cost of living. The company should provide housing. The company should provide food, utilities, and the means to get to and from work. Also, the company should pay, let's say, 20% of gross profit before other expenses, but pre-tax, divided by the number of employees as its salary basis, or 1,000 a month, whichever is higher. The idea is you're creating not just a company, you're creating literally a family and extended family unit out of the paradigm of employment. In other words, you could get that bougie tens of millions or hundreds of millions retreat, and everybody in the company would be able to use it, though they might have to reserve their time to use it. But that sort of thing is possible. So the luxury corporate lifestyle could be made available to everyone if their corporate unit, corporate nation state was doing well. On to the next point, the burden of economy versus the sustainability of self. Well, when we think of economy, we're thinking of global networks of trade, of logistics, of getting certain things that are in demand from certain places that can supply them. But the sustainability of self, meaning as a single person, are you sustainable? Can you sustain yourself? Can you provide your food, your water, your shelter, your air, etc.? Nowadays, in society and markets have gotten so complex that is no longer feasible, because that's no longer how we're set up. We have produced such efficient means of farming to where we no longer need to do every one of these things ourselves. But that also makes us vulnerable. So in the sense of the burden of economy, well, we should be able to pick up our own weight comparatively with the amount of work we do or the amount of work we save. As far as the labor we do is what we're actually contributing as far as our labor. But the labor we save could be, for instance, in research and development, we come up with a more efficient way. Back in the day, it was the cotton gin. Who knows what it is today? And so the economy we save, the labor we save with innovation, is one way to contribute to this on the positive side. The other way is to put in more actual work. And both of those are needed. The sustainability of self comes when all our needs are met internally, and thus we can contribute solidly externally. And a lot of the esteemed needs could be made with a cooperative corporate culture. Now let me get on to the most controversial, inevitably, of these 3 bullet points. This one, ironically enough, is composed of 3 sections. Neo-horizontal integration. Traditionally a monopolistic competition model, horizontal integration is when you own all business in your particular industry. The neo, because we're not talking about owning all business or industry, we're talking on a smaller level of scale. We want to function like a monopoly, not be a monopoly. So in other ways, a monopoly in a self-sufficient sort of context, not a monopoly on the whole world stage, mind you. But we have that kind of sort of equilibrium. So how it would function is we create a monopoly where the monopoly is composed of basically we own all the on every level of the business we have every means to sustain ourselves so we can produce all our own products horizontally across each industry. So we're completely self-sufficient in that matter. This comes from people, someone in the community being able to do each task to provide us each of the means of labor of production that can keep us afloat. Now the neo-vertical integration is the same thing except for vertically. We want to, within each group, within each corporate nation state, within each corporate family model, we want to be able to have the supply chain from top to bottom completely in-house. And neo-interlocking directorates, well, let me put it this way. We will each have a piece of each other's pies. Now on to the corporate nation state. The idea is because the nation state model with a fixed territory has gotten a bit outmoded. We've outgrown it in a lot of ways. We need a sustainable, adaptable, and relevant system. So a corporate nation state, meaning having a society produced of all these different adaptable new paradigm corporations with their associate families integrated within, would then create the adaptability. And you can switch families when you want, you have that freedom, switch businesses, and then you can go from place to place. But a corporation is much more malleable, flexible, and the like than a traditional rigid government. It also allows for a decentralized paradigm that could do the world quite a bit of good. So, which governmental model would I propose to do the whole level of scale? Of course, it's a panthocracy. A panthocracy is a utopian social structure where all are equal in social status and social responsibility. It's basically everybody is equal, but everybody must contribute equal labor. Now, to get a panthocracy into being, we need to be our own self-government. That means abiding by the golden rule, treating each other the way we want to be treated, first of all, and then the only tax in society is a value-added flat tax, meaning that when you consume resources, you pay taxes on it. And then the business aspect takes care of the tax accounting. You never even have to file any forms of the IRS. It's all clean and efficient. But the idea is when you consume resources, you're consuming manpower and or rare earth resources from the planet, and that's the act that we should then meter as far as you need to give back. Because if you eat of the fruit of the land, you should give back in turn. So value-added flat tax. You should not be taxed 5 or 6 tiers like what we have now. That is utterly ridiculous. And this leads into a two-state society. You have your internal state and you have your external state. And both are valid. Lastly, government must be voluntary. You cannot forcibly impose somebody to participate. And in this model, basically, if you choose, you will be encouraged to vote upon where the resources you would like your share of the resources in the tax pool go. Like filling out a ballot, except for you're voting for what proportion of your cut of the resources go towards what. And then after you vote as to where your resources go, you will be required to hold a public and a private sector job for using your privilege to vote. So we literally will be self-government of ourselves and of the whole, both levels of scale. And if you don't want to have a government job or have to do that, you simply just don't vote. And you're not required. But if you're going to spend society's resources, you're required to help do some of the work involved, which is only fair. Now, for the implementation of panthocracy, it starts with ourselves, but also important is we need to have a signed user agreement between us and society. I mean, you have the right to make your own legal binding contract between you and society, and whatever you negotiate with society should be your agreement with society. And this comes from the idea of the social contract, but here in America, the social contract doesn't exist worth a leg. It's an illusion. They say it's there, but it's ambiguous because it's never been put in writing or defined. And there's conformity versus integrity. What I mean that is your self-sovereign integrity as your own individual self. So individualistic integrity. Conformity, well, when do you conform? When it's for the safety of everybody, yeah, it's probably a good idea to conform. When it's for basically you need to protect society, good idea to conform. If it's for the art style of Lady Gaga's next dress, it's not important that you conform to that one. That one, I strongly encourage you to stick to your self-sovereign individual integrity as you have your own opinion on this. You go with it. Because that is not something to really conform to the trend unless you're really that much of a sheeple and then there's no saving you. So, if it's basically something you have an ethical complaint about, which you see a serious, genuine ethical concern from your heart of hearts, and you can't do something because of that, that's where you would exercise your right to personal integrity to kind of veto something the herd is doing if you think it's wrong. And then that's a way more important context than the Lady Gaga's new dress fiasco. I'll tell you what. So to conclude, we have a chance, but we're damned if we don't take it. Meaning, if we keep going the way we've been going, we're going to kill ourselves off as a species, and we're going to kill off the planet. It's no bueno if that happens, so let's kind of get a move on and reform to the new paradigm. The needed reforms we need to do, again, we need a panthocracy structure. We need the corporate nation state, the corporate family model within a container of a panthocratic society. Now, the corporate family model, another addition, and I'll put it in caveat for those of you libertarians that, like me, think taxation is largely theft, if not outright theft. Um, if by covering all the needs for the employees, the health insurance, all the other insurances, the utilities, the dwelling, and everything needed for an employee, that can be written off as a business expense. And then on the personal level, every bit of income a person will take in will be what we call disposable income, but really use it whatever you want, and it will be at a lower tax basis than if you accepted it all and paid yourself as an individual. So ultimately, it is very beneficial. The needed reforms. We need to become sustainable. If we don't become sustainable, we are going to kill ourselves. It's one choice or the other. We're at the edge of a cliff. Are we going to go skydiving without a parachute? In which case we would have to learn how to fly. Or we can reform ourselves into flying beings so we can jump off and have a blast. Anyhow, because sustainability is the key to doing all of this. We need to become sustainable as a species. End of line. Thank you for your time.